Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Thursday, the 21st of July. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 148 of the illegal Russian war of aggression, and then I will look at today's top stories from Scotland and around the world. The Russian Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline has restarted, with gas flowing from Russia to Germany after maintenance, according to data viewed this morning. If Gazprom resumes gas deliveries at 40% of the capacity before the maintenance break, Germany will narrowly scrape through the winter without shortages, modelling by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy suggests. Russia's foreign minister has said Moscow's military tasks now go beyond the eastern Donbass region to permanently occupy broad swathes of southern Ukraine. Russia has shut down the idea of resuming peace talks with Ukraine, accusing it of being undeserving of serious attention from serious people. Sergei Lavrov said the previous sit-down proved Ukraine had no desire to discuss anything in earnest. At least 2 people have been killed and 19 injured in an attack on Kharkiv, according to the region's governor, Oleh Syniehubov. Russian forces destroyed 2 schools in the Donetsk towns of Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka overnight, Ukrainian officials have said. Russia's Ministry of Defense claims to have shot down 1 Ukrainian Su-25 aircraft, 1 Mi-8 helicopter, and 5 unmanned drones in the last 24 hours. The United States estimates that Russian casualties in Ukraine so far have reached around 15,000 killed and perhaps 45,000 wounded, the CIA Director William Burns has said. Ukraine's central bank has devalued the hryvnia currency by 25% against the US dollar because of the impact of the invasion by Russia. The US will provide 4 more advanced precision HIMARS rocket systems to Ukraine, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has announced. In addition, the US will provide additional guided multiple launch rocket systems, GMLRSs, and ammunition, which can precisely strike targets up to 50 miles away. The European Union will mobilise a 5th tranche of military assistance of €500 million to further support Ukraine. Lithuania will offer Ukraine additional military support, including M13 and M577 armoured personnel carriers, as well as ammunition for reserve training. And pro-Russian militias have stepped up the forced conscription of men in the occupied areas of Donbass. Video has emerged of a Ukrainian woman confronting officials who had attempted to force her husband to join pro-Russian fighters in Donetsk. The UK Supreme Court has posted an update on the reference by our Lord Advocate under paragraph 34 of Schedule 6 to the Scotland Act 1998 to the Supreme Court's devolution jurisdiction. The update announced that a date for the hearing has been provisionally set for the 11th and 12th of October 2022, and the panel to hear the arguments being put forward by Scotland's Lord Advocate and opposed by the UK Government will be announced in the Michaelmas term listings at the end of September. Commenting, the Scottish Government Constitution Secretary Angus Robertson said, "The Supreme Court's confirmation that a hearing on the Lord Advocate's reference has been listed for 11 and 12 October 2022 is welcome news. The Lord Advocate's written case has been filed with the Supreme Court and will be published in due course." During this period, he continued, it would be inappropriate for the Scottish Government to comment further as the matter is before the court. Commenting on the publication of the final report from the Drug Deaths Task Force, Drugs Policy Minister Angela Constance said that she welcomed the final report from the Drug Deaths Task Force. She thanked the Chair, David Strang, Vice Chair Fiona McQueen, and the task force members for what she described as their considerable commitment to producing these recommendations, all of which will be considered in detail and responded to in due course. The task force was established by the Scottish Government to provide expert advice on the emergency response to rising drug-related deaths in Scotland. Many of the recommendations proposed in previous reports have already been implemented, including measures to mitigate the impact of the pandemic and the expansion of the police naloxone pilot. Other recommendations, such as safer drug consumption facilities, drug checking facilities, ending Friday release from prison, and medication assisted treatment standards, are also being progressed. Ms. Constant said, "Of course, there are areas where we want to go far further, and today's recommendations will be central to delivering that. We have announced £1.1 million of new investment into public health surveillance projects to improve our real-time understanding so we can improve our responses. A target has been set to increase the number of people in protective treatment for problematic drug use, and we are working closely with integration authorities on accountability and transparency, recently approving a new governance framework with COSLA, which will improve the effectiveness of alcohol and drug partnerships in advance of more ambitious reforms under the new National Care Service." Ms. Constance warned that fragmentation of service delivery is in no one's interest, and particularly so for a group as vulnerable as people who are struggling with drug dependency. She said that she will be focusing on ensuring that all services treat people who use drugs with the same respect and compassion as would be expected for any other health condition. Looking forward, the Drugs Policy Minister said, "With the backing of an additional £250 million over the course of this Parliament, we are now focused on delivery and change on the ground to provide meaningful improvement in people's lives. This will be overseen by the National Drugs Mission Oversight Group, which will support the national mission to reduce drug-related deaths and improve lives by providing scrutiny, challenge and advice to the Scottish Government and the wider sector. It will bring together leaders from a range of organisations and backgrounds, including international experts, those with lived and living experience, clinicians, academics, the third sector and local government, and those with experience of working on the task force to monitor the implementation of their final recommendations. Soaring inflation pushed interest payments on UK debt to a record high in June, putting the government's budget deficit on course to reach more than £100 billion this year, almost double its pre-pandemic level. Highlighting the scale of the economic challenge that will face the next Prime Minister, debt interest payments hit £19.4 billion last month alone. That's the highest since monthly records began in April 1997, according to the Office for National Statistics. A quarter of the UK's £2.5 trillion government debt is index-linked, making the cost of servicing it vulnerable to rising inflation. In a blow to Conservative leadership candidate Liz Truss's plans for expensive tax cuts, the Office for National Statistics said public sector net borrowing increased to £22.9 billion. That's £4.1 billion more than in June last year. A Reuters poll of economists had pointed to a deficit of £23 billion. Over the first 3 months of the 2022-23 financial year starting in April, the UK has borrowed £55.4 billion. Philip Shaw, the chief UK economist at Investec, said the deficit was already £3.6 billion higher than expected by the Office for Budget Responsibility, putting it on course to hit more than £100 billion by the end of the current financial year. He added that the likelihood of an economic downturn could push up government spending and hit tax receipts to increase the deficit further. He said, "The unconditional promises of various candidates over the past week or so in the Conservative Party leadership race to bring taxes down, including the front-runner Liz Truss, have seemed somewhat at odds with delivering a path of fiscal sustainability over the medium term." Ruth Gregory, the senior UK economist at the consultancy Capital Economics, said a further rise in inflation could also wreck plans for tax cuts funding by borrowing. It may limit the ability of the next Prime Minister to provide more relief for households when a further rise in CPI inflation from 9.4% in June to around 12% in October worsens the cost of living crisis, she said. The balance between tax and spending has been hotly debated between the two remaining candidates in the race to replace Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has promised immediate tax cuts, something the other contender, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, says risks fueling inflation. In response to the data, the current Chancellor, Nadhim Zahawi, said he recognised there were risks to the public finances, including from high inflation. In an interview with Nick Robinson on the BBC Radio 4 Today programme, the former Chief Secretary of the Treasury and current Foreign Secretary said the past 20 years of Westminster economic policy hasn't delivered growth, and the UK and the United Kingdom is projected to head for a recession. The claims were immediately picked up by the SNP, who said that the front-runner to be the leader of the Conservative Party and the next Prime Minister was making the case for Scottish independence. SNP Shadow Chancellor Alison Thewliss MP said the comments were a stunning admission from a serving Tory cabinet minister that Westminster control had caused decades of economic failure, and the UK is now heading for a recession on the watch of this Tory government. Alison Thewliss said, Liz Truss is unwittingly making the case for Scottish independence, but she can't pass the buck when she's been at the heart of the UK government, backing the very Tory policies that have hammered the economy, including a disastrous hard Brexit and a decade of austerity cuts. Adding, the UK is lagging behind other countries with the worst growth, productivity, poverty and inequality of our European neighbours. But with the Tories and Labour both wedded to the hard Brexit and damaging austerity cuts, there is no change on offer at Westminster. On the Labour leader, Ms Thewliss said, just like Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer is committed to keeping Brexit, the main policy that is making us all poorer. The answer to decades of Westminster failure is not more of the same. The only way to keep Scotland safe from the damage of Westminster control is to become an independent country, with the powers needed to escape Brexit and build a fair and prosperous future. The use of hotel accommodation for people seeking asylum almost trebled in 2021, despite pledges from the Home Office to end its use. By the end of last year, 26,380 asylum seekers were living in temporary hotel accommodation, according to a report from the Refugee Council entitled Lives on Hold: The Experiences of People in Hotel Asylum Accommodation. Although the accommodation is supposed to be temporary, 378 people have been in hotel rooms for a year and 2,826 for more than 6 months. In the last 3 months of 2021, the Home Office was using 207 hotels to house asylum seekers. In the last quarter of 29, only 24 hotels were being used. The number of families housed in single hotel rooms has increased by nearly a third in 2021, including over 2,500 children, 10% of the hotel population, according to Freedom of Information data obtained by the Refugee Council from the Home Office. Workers for the charity identified widespread depression along with suicidal thoughts among both adults and children, and found that asylum seekers have inadequate access to clothing, footwear, and other basic essentials like painkillers, mobile phones, and internet data. Many living in this accommodation have limited access to the legal and health services they need and are cut off from local communities and support networks. An increase in far-right harassment of asylum seekers at hotels is also highlighted in the report, along with some people being trafficked from hotels. The Refugee Council has accused the Home Office of having no clear plan for improving the issue. This report includes 13 key recommendations, which include ensuring people are not trapped in hotels for long periods, but moved into dispersal accommodation within 35 days, and ensuring that while people are in hotels, they have early access to quality legal advice, as well as having basic essentials like clothing, nutritious food, and medicine. Enver Solomon, the CEO of the Refugee Council, said, We are deeply disappointed that despite government promises to move people out of hotels, the numbers of men, women, and children trapped in unsuitable hotel accommodation has trebled in 1 year alone. A new law brought in by the UK government, which allows businesses to hire agency workers to cross picket lines to break strikes and industrial disputes, comes into force today. The Business Secretary introduced the law in response to the UK-wide rail strikes affecting Network Rail and the rail companies in England. Public sector workers are facing a pay squeeze for the past 10 years. However, the UK cost of living crisis has fueled demand for increased wages to meet rising household bills. Rail workers in Scotland have already reached a negotiated settlement with the Scottish Government-owned ScotRail. However, Network Rail, which operates the tracks and infrastructure across the UK, will be affected by further strikes, including in Scotland, in pursuit of a pay increase in line with the cost of living. The UK government claims this new law will allow businesses most impacted by industrial action to fill vital roles with temporary skilled workers and help ensure crucial public services in people's daily lives remain uninterrupted by strikes. The introduction of the new law is in sharp contrast to the apparent outrage voiced by the UK government earlier this year when P&O Ferries announced that they had made their UK-based staff redundant without notice and would be replacing them, yes, with agency staff brought in from overseas. And as I mentioned earlier, gas has started to flow at reduced levels from Russia to Germany through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, after fears a scheduled shutdown for maintenance work would be used as a pretext to permanently close off the supply. However, the resumption at an estimated 40% of supplies is insufficient to keep an energy crisis at bay in Europe this winter, experts have said. Initial reports of the taps being turned back on at 6 a.m. local time said only that natural gas was flowing, but not how much. In data provided by Gazprom, Russia's state-owned energy company, to Gascade, the German operator of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, 530 gigawatt hours was expected to be delivered during the course of today. Klaus Müller, the head of the energy regulator, Bundesnetzagentur, said this was 30% of the normal level, but later revised that figure to 40%. In Berlin and Brussels, it is thought that Russia is deliberately squeezing supplies in order to avenge Western sanctions introduced in response to the invasion of Ukraine. Gazprom has in recent weeks cut flows to Germany via Nord Stream 1 by 60%, citing the absence of a Siemens gas turbine which was being repaired in Canada. A spokesperson for the German Ministry of Economy said on Wednesday there was no technical justification for the reduction in deliveries after the completion of the maintenance work. Berlin has been awaiting the end of the works with trepidation since the 11 July shutdown, with an expectation that either the gas would be cut off completely or reduced. Experts have said an energy crisis in Europe is unavoidable under the current circumstances. Yesterday, the European Commission called for EU countries to reduce demand for natural gas by 15% over the foreseeable future in an attempt to boost winter stocks of gas and to defeat what the Commission's President, Ursula von der Leyen, referred to as blackmail by Russia. Member States were also asked to give Brussels the power to introduce compulsory energy rationing, which would allow a prioritisation of supplies in the case that Russia cuts off gas to Europe altogether. Led by the IMF, warnings of a catastrophic impact on the European economy that could plunge some countries into recession are widespread, starting with the closing of factories and including restricting heat in households. Considerably higher energy costs and consumer prices are already a reality, but are predicted to worsen. Germany's economy minister, Robert Habeck, has talked of a nightmare scenario facing Europe, especially Germany, Europe's largest economy. Habeck has spoken of the steps he has taken to reduce his personal energy consumption, including taking shorter showers and turning off lights, just as German consumers and municipalities have also been urged to do. This is part of a three-part emergency gas crisis plan that was triggered earlier this year. The third and final part of the plan would be a dramatic step involving intervening in the internal market to specify which industries receive what level of supplies. Joe Biden tested positive for COVID today, underscoring the persistence of the highly contagious virus as new variants challenge his nation's efforts to resume normalcy after 2.5 years of pandemic disruptions. The White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that Biden was experiencing mild symptoms and had begun taking Paxlovid, an antiviral drug designed to reduce the severity of the disease. She said that Biden will isolate at the White House and will continue to carry out all of his duties fully during that time. He has been in contact with members of the White House staff by phone this morning and will participate in the planned meetings at the White House this morning via phone and Zoom from the residence. Biden, 79, is fully vaccinated after getting 2 doses of the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine shortly before taking office, a first booster shot in September, and an additional dose on March the 30th. Mario Draghi has confirmed his resignation as Italy's Prime Minister after an attempt to salvage his broad coalition failed when 3 key parties snubbed a confidence vote, paving the way for snap elections that could take place as early as late September. Backed by a groundswell of public support, the former European Central Bank chief had attempted to continue his administration on condition that his alliance rebuild a pact of trust that would enable it to work together to overcome huge challenges over the coming months. Draghi formally handed his resignation to the President Sergio Mattarella on Thursday morning, and it was accepted. However, the populist Five Star Movement, M5S, Matteo Salvini's far-right League, and Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italia did not participate in a confidence vote in the Senate on Thursday night that essentially called for parties to approve a spirit of cooperation. The political crisis was triggered last week after M5S boycotted a vote on a €26 billion package designed to help Italians tackle inflation and energy costs, arguing it was insufficient. The party was also unhappy that the package contained a provision to build a huge waste incinerator plant in Rome. The League and Forza Italia had both called for a new Draghi-led government, but without M5S, while demanding a cabinet reshuffle. M5S was annoyed that Draghi had not embraced the policy priorities presented to him in its 9-point plan, including a basic income and green homes bonus scheme. Draghi's resignation comes despite calls for him to remain in post, including from world leaders who see him as fundamental to not only ensuring stability in Italy, but also as a partner in facing the challenges of Russia's war in Ukraine. He had urged unity in order to face challenges such as the Ukraine war, the energy crisis, social inequality, and the enactment of reforms needed to obtain the next tranche of €200 billion Italy is due to receive from the EU's post-pandemic recovery fund. He also rebuked his coalition partners for infighting and point scoring over recent months. His departure will most likely lead to early elections that could take place on 25 September or the 2nd of October. It is possible that Mattarella will ask Draghi to stay on as caretaker Prime Minister until a new government is formed after the elections. A survey of recent polls found that if early elections are held, a coalition led by the far-right Brothers of Italy and including the League and Forza Italia could win a majority. And the Scottish premiere of Doctor Who Worlds of Wonder will take place at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh this December. The groundbreaking new exhibition, which runs from the 10th of December this year to the 1st of May 2023, will explore the science behind the global hit television series Doctor Who, and will give fans a chance to experience the Doctor's adventures from a scientific perspective. Produced by the leading experiential design experts Sarner International under license from BBC Studios, this new exhibition invites fans of all ages to explore the role science has played in the world's longest-running action-adventure show. The 8 zones set within this educational exhibition cover a diverse selection of exciting scientific topics, while drawing on content from across the full canon of Doctor Who. A range of hands-on immersive experiences and interactive features take visitors on a journey through cosmic curiosities, a TARDIS tech room, and the science behind time travel, asking whether it really is possible, as well as the Monster Vault, where you can get up close with some of the weird and wonderful characters that have graced our screens. Doctor Who Worlds of Wonder will offer a thrilling exploration of science for both established fans of the TV show and newcomers alike. The exhibition premiered at National Museum's Liverpool's World Museum, where it will run until the 30th of October. Doctor Who has strong Scottish connections. To date, 3 Scots have played the role of the Doctor: Sylvester McCoy, David Tennant, and Peter Capaldi, the 7th, 10th, and 12th Doctors respectively, with a 4th, Ncuti Gatwa, recently announced as the new Doctor. Other notable cast members have included companions Karen Gillan and Niamh Macintosh, as well as Michelle Gomez as Missy, the Master, and Alan Cumming having also appeared recently as King James VI. And that is all that we have time for this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs, and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station, and to make new programmes for you. If you would like to support us, then please subscribe or donate to Broadcasting Scotland. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. You will also see that our appeals for assistance on Facebook and Twitter are continuing because the urgent need for financial support has not gone away. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Meantime, I will be here again tomorrow evening with the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please tune in and join us again then. And that's the way it is at very nearly Scotland at 7:27. Thank you to everyone who has been watching this evening. Today is the anniversary of the death in Dumfries of Robert Burns in 1796, regarded as Scotland's national poet and an icon who has loomed large in Scottish culture and consciousness ever since. So we'll play out this evening with something suitable to remember him by. Please have a very peaceful evening. Bye-bye.
Scots war hae wi Wallace bled, Scots whan Bruce has art and led. Welcome to your gory bed, or to victory. Now's the day and now's the hour, see the front, old battle hour, see approach proud Edward's power, chains and slavery. Wha would be a traitor knave, wha would fill a coward's grave, wha say base as be a slave, let him turn and flee. Wars for Scotland's king and law, freeman's sword will strongly draw, freeman stand or freeman fall, let him follow me. By oppression's woes and pains, by your sons in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but we shall be free. Let it proud usurpers low, tyrants fall in every foe, liberties in every blow, let us day or day. Scots for he wi' Wallace bled. Scots Wham Bruce has oft times led. Welcome to your gory bed, or to victory.